Very good. Oh, sorry.
We are going to have a lot of fun this evening and an amazing message. We have our very first guest speaker joining us. She is a near and dear friend to each of us and a precious sister in Christ. This is Chelsea Bennett.
Hello.
And her love and faith for the Lord are infectious. She is a powerful witness to his name. And thank you so much, Chelsea, for joining us. We can't wait to see what the Lord has for all of us tonight.
Yes, thank you guys for having me.
So excited. It's going to be good. So we have not formatted this evening. We have not we have decided that we're going to allow the Lord to carry this conversation, and we know that the message that he has for us and for y'all is going to be extremely powerful. So Chelsea has an amazing story to share. Her life, her testimony, her marriage, everything it's amazing. It's amazing. So I'll let you kick it off.
Yeah, so again, thank you guys for having me. First of all, I just want to start by saying that God is so good. God is so good. And before I even came here, I was worshiping in the car just at the fact that I get to be on a podcast, being able to share my testimony, because a couple of years ago, I would have never thought I would be where I am today. And so I want to give all glory to God because he's so good. There's no situation that's too hopeless. There's nothing where you're too far gone that God can't redeem. And he's just a really good God. And so, yeah, I just want to glorify him in everything that I do. And I'm thankful to be here tonight and, share my testimony a little bit with you guys. So if you have any questions, just let me know.
Oh, we will.
Part of my testimony and what the Lord revealed to me on the way here, and it's so funny how he does that. Whenever you're not really looking for it, it just unexpectedly happens, when we're least expecting it, he always speaks. But a part of my testimony with my husband, the Lord revealed to me that I was using that part as my testimony because I was really ashamed to bring to light what all God had delivered me from. It was easier for me to talk about my husband overcoming addiction than for me to talk about the things that God had brought me out of. And obviously there's so much to my testimony that I cannot get it all out in one evening. But the main point is the faithfulness of God.
We are raw and real Western women who have endured the fires of life, and though we carry the brands of our trials,
we are learning how to satisfy our thirst with the well water that comes from the only one that can truly satisfy, Jesus.
Journey with us as we explore an unlimited range of topics. We will discuss our personal experiences,
the good, the bad, and the ugly, along our beautiful journeys to the well, and so much more.
Water up!
I'm 31 years old, and I have 3 children, and I've been married for 8 years. I am currently living in Grapeland, and I'm from a little town in Starks, Louisiana, is the name of it. And it's very small. I had probably 11 kids in my class growing up, so I mean, a little bitty town. If you blink when you're driving through it, you're going to miss it. And it's super cool because my whole family is there. I think I'm probably the furthest one that lives away. My family all kind of live on top of each other. My cousin's probably about 15 minutes away. I have another one about 30 minutes away. I'm the only one that moved off. And so how I even got here is super cool, how I made it here to Texas. I grew up in a Pentecostal church. My great-grandparents were very faithful, and I'm very thankful for my upbringing. I'm very thankful for growing up knowing the Lord and knowing the faithfulness of God and being introduced to the moving of the Spirit. Those things weren't foreign to me growing up, so I'm very thankful for that. But, we were in and out a lot My mom, she would what they call backsliding, in the church for a season, out of the church for a season. And so growing up, one of the things that I took away from the way that I was raised, not that this was how they were teaching me, but it's the way that what I took out of it was a very much works-based salvation for me. I thought I had to do enough in order to be saved. Had to look the part, had to talk a certain way. If I wasn't doing certain things, then there's no way I could be good enough to be saved. That was how I interpreted that. But I do think that when I finally started to seek out my own salvation with fear and trembling, like the word says, and we can get into that whole process a little bit later, but when I started to seek that out, I think that because of the way that I interpreted certain things, I had to overcome a lot of religious mindsets. And I think that's something that not a lot of us talk about because we don't want to bring shame to anyone or to my family or my upbringing at all. But that was my interpretation of it. And so the seed was definitely planted. Even when I was living in the world, I still would, have those nights where I'd be up just like crying out to the Lord, knowing there was more than what I was doing, And I ran from God for a long time just because of shame, So my mom had me when she was 21 years old, and she did not know who my father was. But she had gotten with my little brother's dad when I was 3 months old. So I didn't, I grew up thinking, that's my daddy, And so I had a good childhood, and my mama loved me, and my dad, who I thought was my dad, he was a good man. He provided for us. He wasn't very affectionate at all. I can remember, always saying, I love you, Daddy, and he would say, you too. He wasn't, was not very affectionate at all, And then I remember being 8 years old. I had heard my grandmother. I spent a lot of time with my grandmother, very close to my grandma. And I remember when I would hear my grandma say, that's not your real dad, Chelsea. But that didn't stick out to me very much. Like my mom would just say, oh, she's just, she's just being nene. She doesn't know what she's talking about, But there's this prominent memory in my mind. I had my older sister. It was my stepdad's daughter. And we were on the bus. I love her so much still to this day. That's my sister, But we were on the bus and we were in an argument. And I can remember her saying, you're not even my real sister. And I was like, what? I'm so upset. And there's a lot from my childhood that I don't really remember. But I'm sure at that point I had a conversation with my mom. And that's how I began to figure things out. And so any kid that finds that out, you're wanting to know. You're wanting to know who is my daddy, who am I? And it really started a lot in my teenage years. Sexual abuse runs in my family. And it was something that was talked about, if you go over to a friend's house, things to be aware of, whatever. It wasn't anything to shy away from. And so, I didn't have a dad. So growing up, there were two men in my life that they were my heroes. They couldn't do any wrong in my eyes. I had very close relationship with them. I would have never thought that one of them was a predator. I would have never thought that. And so my guard was down when I was around him. That's my favorite person, And so trust was, betrayed my trust. And when I had admitted that at 13 years old, what had happened, and it was also something that I wasn't really sure what had happened because it didn't go all the way. It was more of just touching. When I had finally came clean about it, nobody believed me.
Oh,
Even though it had already happened before. And they asked me if I had knew about what had happened before, but I lied because I was fearful. I was afraid if they knew, if they knew that I had really known, then they wouldn't believe me. Right. I was already a liar, so they wouldn't believe me. So I lied, and basically it was pretty much just like swept under the rug. Still went to holidays around that person. I was looked at differently. I was treated differently at 13 years old. I was made to feel like my family hated me. There was something wrong with me, which is just the enemy. My family loved me. My family loved me so much, and I love my family so much. But like I said, a lot of my family members had been abused and never got help from that. And so it played a big part in how they responded. It hurt people, right?
Yes.
And so it played a big part in how they responded. And so after that point, I think I finally was at a point in my young age, of thinking I had it all figured out. And if everybody thought I was a liar, well, then I was just going to be the liar. And I was just going to do what I wanted to do because nobody cared anyways. And I became very rebellious. And so I can remember at 13 years old, by this time my mom had gotten a divorce from my little brother's dad. And so I was even angry about that. But then my mom got this boyfriend and she would be at his house more. So we would be alone. So it was almost kind of like
freedom.
I liked it because
Yeah.
he was more strict and stern than she was. And so it was almost like a part of me was like thankful because whenever I got tired of her, that was very much, my dad at that point. I could just go to dad's house and, mom wasn't home very much. So I could just have my friends over and everything was just great, And so I was just a broken little girl. Like I look back now and I was just a broken little girl. And eventually my stepdad that had raised me, it was almost like he divorced my mom, so he divorced me too. I didn't hear from him, which my little brother really didn't hear from him very much either. But it was almost like I was experiencing a death. It's so weird because all of a sudden he was there and then he was gone.
Yep.
I was still, I didn't know who my dad was, and so I still wanted to know who my dad was. I had resentment towards my mom because, maybe if I would have known my dad, I wouldn't have had to experience all these things in my family. I would know who I am. I could go live with him, and life would just be so much different,
That was your string of hope.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And so as time progressed, I can remember smoking and drinking and going to parties at 13 years old. Like my best friend was 18 years old. My mom did not know, obviously. But she was an investigator. At that time we had MySpace. I don't know if you remember MySpace.
Yeah, MySpace.
I had a pair of brown shoes with little gold beads on them, and all that was in the picture was my shoe. My foot and my shoe. And my mom was like, I know you were at a party last night. And I was like, what? Sure enough, I'd already told her myself, but she found out from my shoe in the picture on MySpace. No, not at all. But I was a good kid. I was just a lost kid. I didn't really know how to open up to my mom and share the things that I was going through. I just felt like a disappointment. Why disappoint more? Why, And so she ended up getting another boyfriend, and we moved in with him pretty quickly. And And it was fine because the town was only like 10 minutes from where I was originally from. So Starks, Louisiana is right on the line. It's 5 minutes. You're in Texas. And so Deweyville was the name of the school. And I had, my cousins went there. You know, I knew a lot of people there. So I liked that she got this new boyfriend because I liked this school better. I had more friends, you know, whatever.
It's like that's the only thing you had to cling to.
Yes. I wanted so badly to be accepted by people. I was just looking for love and friends and all the wrong places. Looking for love in all the wrong places. But anyways, I ended up, my mom left him, got another boyfriend shortly after that, and we moved all the way to Moss Bluff at that time, which was like over an hour away. And that one made me mad because I was finally at the school I liked. I had the friends that I wanted. Everything was working out. And then it's time to up and move. And so that just made me madder at my mom. I had a lot of resentment towards her for, you know, the death of my stepdad, him not being a part of my life anymore. And kind of like made me feel like I lost that sense of family, even though we had problems. You know, it wasn't the perfect family, but it was what was my normal.
Yeah.
And then experiencing all of that with my family, trying to re-find myself in things of the world and friends and all those kinds of things. And then as soon as I got this little bit of happiness, it felt like it was ripped from me. And so she ended up getting with my stepdad when I was 14 years old. He is still my stepdad to this day. He is my best friend. I love my stepdad so much. He's a great man. And she ended up getting with him, but he had 3 bad kids. 3 bad kids. Bad kids.
It was bad, but it was real bad.
And I love y'all if y'all ever see this, but y'all was bad. And you know you bad. But I am not making this up. The youngest, like me and my little brother, you know, we were very like calm and whatever. We move into this house and Mom leaves one day and he is chasing us with a knife. And we have to lock ourselves in the room and he's underneath the door with this knife, like something you'd see on a scary movie. Like, these people are crazy. What are you doing leaving us here? Like, it was nuts. And so, new school. Now, mind you, I went from a little bitty school, pre-K through 12th grade, like 11 kids in the class, to Deweyville, a little bit bigger, but I still knew everybody, but not that much bigger, to this big, huge school where there's like 300 kids in one class. My numbers could be wrong, but I mean, it was big. And it was, you know, the elementary in one school, middle school in the next, high school in the next. And this is my freshman year of school.
Oh, man.
Those are the important years.
Yeah. Yes. And I didn't know anybody. And blonde hair, well, not anymore, but blonde hair, blue eyes. Over there, I had a very bad country accent. Over here, I think it kind of blends in, you know, but so they would make fun of my accent. I didn't really have a lot of friends. I was just mad at everybody. And so then it turned into, I had never gotten sent to the office at my old school, never got in trouble. Turned into me getting in a fight at the school with a senior that somebody put on YouTube and getting suspended. And basically I just tell my mom, I'm like, you may think I'm going to school, but girl, I ain't going to school. I am not going back to that school. I was not used to being bullied. I was used to being friends with everybody. You know, when you grow up in a small town, everybody knows everybody. It's like family. I was not used to not being liked. You know, like it was it was a culture shock for me because it was tons of different people, cultures, whatever. And then it was also a shock to me just not being accepted. Like, what am I doing wrong, you know? So anyways, I skipped like a lot. All the time. I think from August until my mom finally got a letter in like October, I maybe went like a week or two of school. Where I got the money from or how I figured, I don't even know. There was one day I stayed in my closet all day long and my mom never knew. Hopefully my kids never watch this. But anyway, so I can't remember if it was 2 weeks before my 16th birthday or 2 weeks before my 17th birthday. But basically, I wanted to be grown, and I had a little boyfriend at the time, and I just wanted to be with him, and I had it all figured out. And so me and my mom get into an argument, and she was like, okay, you think you're grown, you pack your stuff and you leave. And I'm like, are you sure? Because that's what I wanted so bad. That's what I wanted really badly. Because my boyfriend was older than me at the time, and he had a little, I thought it was so cool, but a little camper trailer outside of his mom's house. And I just thought he was the bee's knees. But anyways, and so she did. She kicked me out. And I think all she would have had to say is, little girl, you ain't going nowhere. And I'd be like, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Because, like, I respected my mama. Even if I acted like I didn't. Like, I was scared of my mama. She was in the Navy, and my mama don't play.
Are you finding that you need more fuel throughout the week? Check out these other Jesus-driven podcasts. The Get Right Christian Podcast, hosted by Jess Bishop, Jay Barnes, and Justin Brent. And Unshakable with Charlana Kelly, brought to you by Speak Truth Media. Charlana has been a wonderful influencer of ours, and we highly recommend listening to her program.
Anyway, so I had been on my own either 2 weeks before my 16th birthday or 2 weeks before my 17th birthday. I get kicked out, and I just think I'm grown. I'm packing my stuff, and I'm like, oh, I don't have to deal with anybody telling me what to do and all this stuff. I move in with my boyfriend, who is actually my oldest daughter's biological dad. And I get slapped in the face with reality. Big time. The only reason I had that cell phone because somebody else was paying the bill, you know, like. But anyways, and so deal with all of that. I found this boy that loved me, and we were so happy. And he, you know, because of my past, it was like I had to hold on to that. I had to find the good in people. Mm-hmm. I couldn't just, not everybody can be bad. I had to find the good, you know? Mm-hmm. And so he ended up cheating on me. He drank a lot, and I just stayed because this was my family. This was something just for myself, and there was no way I could go back home and let mama be right, or, you know, like I had to make this work.
Oh, pride.
Oh, pride. And it shows up at the youngest of ages.
Yes, it does.
But
It don't go nowhere either.
no. Yes, it does. I ain't keeping that. Nuh-uh, in Jesus' name. But anyway, so I was going to say long story short, but there's no way to shorten it. But I end up, a couple years later, we were together for about 3 years. I got pregnant at 17 years old, and had my little girl at 18 years old. A few months into it, he continued to drink. I can specifically remember he went and bought like a $700 like Xbox and games and stuff instead of paying our rent. And so we lost our house, and he drank a lot. And mind you, I already said I'm never going to be the one that, like, my kid doesn't have a daddy. Like, I would never do that to my kid after my mom did that to me, you know? Mm-hmm. So I'm like, I'm going to make this work. I'm going to make this work. So there was a lot of things that were being overlooked. Mm-hmm. And I just kept pushing because I was not going to end up like my mama, you know? Not that there's anything wrong with my mama, but this is just as a kid, you know, how you interpret things or what's going on in my own mind. And so I ended up just telling him, like, this is not the life that I want for me and my daughter. We break up. He has nothing to do with my daughter. I'm still to this day, I feel like if he saw her in public, he would have no idea who she was. We have no contact. But the faithfulness of God, I'll just leave that there. God knows what he's doing. And my husband is incredible, and that's her daddy. Mm-hmm.
Amen.
But so I end up going to college full time, working 2 jobs. I have no help. I'm not getting child support. I'm supposed to get child support, but I wasn't getting child support. I got into a relationship. Again, I'm in all these relationships. Like, left him, got with someone else because I just wanted to find my daughter a daddy. I just wanted to have a family. Was in this relationship with this one guy who also had a drinking problem. Don't know why that's how I like to pick them, but that was my top for some reason. Ended up, moving in with him quickly at like 19 years old, maybe 20. Him and I broke up, got into another relationship.
Basically, it's the same pattern
over and over and over again.
What, you know?
Generational.
Yes, it's generational. You're right. A generational curse. It's so deep. It becomes like your DNA, like just history repeating itself over and over and over. How funny is it half the time when we say, oh, I'm never going to be like my parent. I'm never going to do this. And we start doing the same things just like them. And so I ended up getting in this last relationship with a man that my parents did not approve of, and they basically disowned me. That relationship was very toxic. Mental abuse, emotional abuse. It was just, got cheated on all the time. But I was out on my own, and like we had a place together and we were a family, and so I just had to make it work. I couldn't be in another relationship. I couldn't, And so, and he was really good to my daughter. So it was like, as long as you're good to her, it doesn't really matter what you do to me, because I didn't even have respect for myself, it doesn't matter how you treat me because I don't even like me, pretty much, And so I think my rock bottom was I started smoking this fake incense stuff, and I had never dabbled in drugs. I was never interested in any of those things. He opened that up to me, which I'm the one who took it. That's on me. That's on Chelsea. But it started to be like something where I was only happy if I had that. And I don't even like going down this road, but I will do it for the glory of God. I don't like even like remembering these things, but I can remember we had a long tan sectional, and I would light one up, and I can remember falling asleep and waking up with burn holes all on our couch. So God was so faithful to keep his hand over my baby, to keep his hand over me, even when I wasn't looking for him, didn't care, give him a second thought. Like, God had his hands on me. And like you said, that seed was still planted. There was still a seed planted there. It didn't look like there was any growth. It didn't look like there was anything, on the surface. But underneath, there was something that was still planted there, And so I was doing drugs, and he was cheating and cheating and cheating. And I go to school the next day, and there's a professor, and they're asking us our names and what do we want to do. And I say, my name is Chelsea Bussell. My parents' name are Penny Foster and Scott Foster. And the professor decides he's going to be like, he's like, well, why is your last name Bussell and their last name Foster? I was like, because I don't know who my dad is, okay? And so I go outside of the classroom, grab my stuff, I leave, I call my mom, and I was like, if you do not find out, mind you, through the years, I brought it up. I want to know. Who is it? I want to know. She had told me one man was my dad. We get a blood test. It wasn't. That really made me upset, really made me more resentful towards my mom. But my mom was not the enemy. Our enemy doesn't have a face. He's just trying to cause division between me and my mom. And she was hurt. She had her own obstacles that she had to overcome as a child, things that had happened to her, abuse. And so, like I said, she was doing the best that she could with what she had. And so I just tell her, if you don't find out who my dad is, you will never see me and my daughter ever again. And so I get a call back a little bit later. I just did the hardest thing I've ever had to do. And I'm like, I don't care. You know, like, whatever. And she was like, I reached out to this man and he's going to come and you are going to get a blood test tomorrow. I'm like 21 or 22 at this age. And so this man shows up the next day. He drives all the way from Pollock, Texas to Sulphur, Louisiana, where we were living at the time. And he picks me up and we go and have dinner. And it's like, it's so crazy how I had never been around this man. Again, it shows you how deep things go in generation, you know, and DNA and all that kind of stuff. But I had never been around this man ever. And we were very similar. Like we were, I mean, we just didn't skip a beat, you know. And so we get the blood test done and I'm already getting these hopes built up like, oh, I want him to be my dad. But I'm also like, oh, I can't get too excited because I don't know. And so a week later, I believe it was January 27th or January 28th of maybe 2015, I believe. I think so. We get the results back, and that's my daddy. And I'm just so excited. But mind you, my world is upside down right now. Like, I am doing all the wrong things. I'm in a terrible relationship. And so I find out who my dad is. But the next night after I had found out who my dad was, he introduced me to his wife. And she was like, you've got to meet Dane Bennett. He is your soulmate. And I'm like, excuse me, I'm not interested in that. I just got out of a really bad relationship. And one of the things that I left out from that was at the end of that relationship where it's really bad, my biggest fear was being a single mother to another baby. I'd already done it to one. I didn't want to do it again. It wasn't any fun. Like, it just was not for me, you know. It was very hard. I had no help, and it was a struggle. And when I knew I had hit rock bottom, I'm doing drugs, I'm in a bad relationship, he's cheating on me, all these things, I find out that I am pregnant again. And I was devastated. I was so devastated. It was like the wind got knocked out of me. And I didn't believe. Like, I wasn't searching for the Lord, but like he was still, you know, like he was still with me. I still loved Jesus. You know, I knew who Jesus was. And abortion was like nothing that ever came to my mind at all. Like, you know, you're pregnant now, you got to deal with it, you know? And this man manipulates me, and he's basically like, knows my biggest fear is like being a single mom to two. I just wanted the family. And he was basically like, I'm scheduling you an abortion. And if you don't do it, I'll leave you. I won't have anything to do with you or that baby. And you'll be alone by yourself. It's just like the enemy to know exactly what to say, to hit those nerves, you know. And so I did. I went and had an abortion. We were walking in the clinic, and there's people with signs saying, you're going to go to hell if you kill your baby. And I believed it. I believed it. And I go in the clinic, and I remember I was very early still. And so one of the ways is you take a pill, and then you go and get your other prescription. And anyways, but when you take that pill, it's all over after that. Like, there is no going back from that, which I know God can do anything, but, you know, from that pill, that's what does it. And so it's time for me to take the pill. And I'm like, I can't do this. And he was like, you'll be okay, you can just do it. I make a phone call to a family member, and I say, if you just promise that I'm pregnant, I'm so sorry to disappoint you. I don't want to disappoint you again. I'm not asking you to pay for anything, but if you'll just be there for me so I won't be alone, if you'll just be here with me. And they were like, can you imagine having another baby by another man, and it was a mixed race? Could you imagine what people are going to think about you? And like, just crushed me. Any ounce of like dignity or any, you know, like it was just crushed to nothing. I didn't even know why I was here. Like, why am I here? What am I doing? You know, like, anyways. And so I hung up the phone and I took the pill. And then shortly after that, I find out who my dad is. Meet my dad, and, I tell you, I meet my stepmom, and she's just staring at me. I'm like, what? Just went through all this, and I'm like, oh, I'm meeting my dad. Like, God is starting to change things in my life, whatever. She's like, you got to meet Dane Bennett. He's your soulmate. No way. I'm not interested in a man, not interested.
With them.
I'm done with it, not interested. But I would get alone with the Lord at that point. And I was like, God, there has to be more to life than this. Like, surely this is not it. This is not what you had for me. Like, I can't just be living to get through every day and just living to pay the bills. And there has to be more than this. When I brought that to light and started walking in the light with others and with Jesus, he had no more power over me anymore. He couldn't use it against me anymore because I didn't care who knew about it. Obviously, I'm talking about it on a podcast,
Yeah.
because they have no power over me. The enemy lost his power when I brought it to light and let the Lord heal me.